Secondary break. Graham Bunn, Zach Talitsky, Tar Heel takes. Call us what you want. Struggle bus city right now. And look, we're limping. It's Duke week, and I wish I could enjoy it. We're limping into Cameron Indoor Stadium. We've dropped 3 out of 4. What are we? We're 6-4 in conference, 13-9 overall. And the Boston College game that we won at home for our only win in the last 4 felt like a loss. I mean, they were one.
Should have been a loss.
And we squeaked that out. I don't want to judge any other team's coach, but the time and clock management at the end of regulation, if I'm a Boston College fan, was criminal. It was criminal. But
yeah, we had no business beating the worst team in the ACC at home.
So, we could get into, and usually if you're joining us and you're new to this, we get into the games and why we won, why we lost, things that we take away. I'm starting to garner speed on some of these socials and blogs and just kind of monitoring the situation about Carolina, the program in its entirety. And we titled this show, Is Hubert Davis the Guy? Because I wanted to have a very honest conversation. I have been struggling with this, and I want to give you credit before we get into this. We said this a multitude of times. This is our second season doing this, and my brother is just amazing to do this with me because we both love Carolina. We said we need to enjoy last season. We were like, look, we need to enjoy this. So we did, which was nice. I didn't foresee us struggling this bad. I did foresee us not being as good as we were last year because I definitely placed a lot of emphasis on Baycott becoming such a better defender in the pick and roll and just cleaning up a lot of mistakes and hiding deficiencies. But this year's been brutal. And if you look at it, I know context matters to conversations. 3 out of 4 years and 2 out of 4 years, potentially we're going to miss the NCAA tournament. But we've been living on the bubble outside of one season for Hubert Davis's entire tenure at North Carolina. So I pose this question to you, Zach. You're a better man than me. You're a better fan than me. Is Hubert Davis our guy?
If he is our guy, it comes with some caveats, and I think that the program clearly needs some changes. I love Hubert. I think he is a great steward of the program. I think he's a great representative for the university. If I had a son, I would want him to play for Hubert. I love his passion for the university and, his alignment with, I think, the values of Carolina basketball. So I want him to be the guy. I want him to be the head coach of North Carolina for a long time. However, what's happening, I think, with the university and the program is not, it's not working, at least not working at the level that we've all come to expect. And this is, I think, the worst run, maybe 4 or 5 year run going back to the COVID year that the program's had since Dean, maybe before that, maybe before Frank McGuire. So we've got to do something. And, whether that's a change at the top with Hubert, whether that's adding a general manager and we do what some of the other programs are doing and we follow the lead of what we're doing on the football side, where we're separating the coaching from player evaluation and roster construction. That seems to be where college sports is going.
Or I think that has to happen regardless. I think that happens whether Hubert is the guy or not. I think that has to happen for the program to move forward. But go ahead.
And maybe there's changes in the coaching staff. I don't know. I sort of look in our history. It used to be we would have big guys when we had Steve Robinson. They'd come into the program. They would develop. There'd just be huge leaps from year to year. And, and I sort of look at our bigs now, not that I don't think we have talented bigs compared to some of those future teams, but I also just don't see like the player development, year over year. And so, that's part of what the coaching staff has to do. And so I think we have to be willing to take a very hard look at what we're doing. And like any good organization, make those hard choices and changes. And if we don't, then I think Hubert can't be the guy. But I do think he he can be a great leader for this program if he's willing to do those things, and if we can get the right GM in place to help with the roster construction. Because I mean, this is not a well put together roster. The pieces don't fit. The talent level isn't there. And so that has to get remedied, first and foremost. When we saw it going into the year, like, you don't have to be a basketball genius to know that we had some severe limitations. And, we've had a bunch of misses in the transfer portal. And I think part of what the GM can do is put up, create a scouting department, just like Belichick's doing, be on top of, what's happening in the mid majors and across the college basketball landscape. So when the portal opens, we're ready. We spend our time and our NIL dollars on the right people who fit our style. But, bringing in people and spending a lot of time and recruiting energy on a Cade Tyson who can't even get on the floor, that handicaps our ability to be competitive. That's nothing against him. But that's just the reality is we're having those types of misses.
Yeah. So one of the questions that I want to pose to you is the team, if you take a step back, we're not used to, well, I guess we're used to being on the bubble, but over the last couple decades,
we're getting very used to it.
Yeah. Not consistently living where we're living. That being said, context, I want to keep this conversation in context because, we go to Kansas and lose by 3. And over the course of this season, I think we have 6 games where we have led under the 3-minute mark left in the second half and lost all 6. And lost all 6 to some really stiff and tough competition. And I think the only reason that we're even in the mix for being on the bubble, and I think that ends here in the next 2 games. This next stretch is brutal. But we lose to Kansas at Kansas by 3. Then we lose to Auburn, which was a beating. We lose to Michigan State, who's proven to be a very competitive team. I think that was an overtime game. We lose by 3. We get taken to the woodshed by Bama, who takes a lot of people to the woodshed. We lose to Florida, which was a good game. We led that game late. We beat UCLA on, a neutral site. We lose to Louisville at home, where we were up 1 with 4 minutes and 23 seconds left and don't score another point. So there's a theme to this. We're in all of these games and we cannot close. And it goes back to the national title game. I mean, we surrendered the largest halftime lead of any national championship game in the history of national championships. I just feel like sometimes that reflects coaching. Now, is it better coaching that we're even in these games? Or is it a reflection of coaching that we can't execute down the stretch and bring any of these home? Because, like, when you're 0 for 6, you expect to win some of those. And, I mean, we're a miracle 3-1 at Notre Dame from losing that game from Elliot Cadeau. You know what I mean? So, like, the record could be way worse.
Right. We're about 500, I think, on a lot of these one-possession games. We've gotten lucky to win a couple. I don't know. Maybe we've gotten unlucky to lose a couple. Mm-hmm. But yes, I think that the coaching matters. And I think that you can look to certain indicators, what happens coming out of a dead ball, timeout. Right. And what do they run? What do we run? And I feel like this has been going on for a couple of years now, in these critical situations, if we call a timeout, we almost never run something where I feel like, okay, that was something that got us a great look for somebody that we want taking a shot, on the spot of the floor that they really want to be in. I mean, it happens every once in a while, or just the ability to make adjustments, during the flow of the game.
Yeah.
And, it felt like, Pitt, talking about the most recent game, they made good adjustments down the stretch. We scored whatever it was, 1 or 2 baskets. And
they finished the game on a 14-2 run.
Yeah. Yeah. And at some point you have to call a timeout if you sense that the team is out of rhythm, or we're going one-on-one or over dribbling or what have you. And all of those things were happening at the Pitt game. I mean, again, I'm not a basketball genius, but I can watch that game and know we're not in any sort of sync on offense and that we need to do something differently. in order to get better looks. And so just, so that I think some of the close losses are because of coaching differentials. And I know after the Boston College game, apparently Hubert, went into the locker room and gave it a very emotional conversation, had all the assistant coaches talk about their time at North Carolina and how special it was to them. And it was, sort of a very like heart to heart sort of thing with the team. And that's great. But I don't think that this team is losing because of a lack of heart or effort or love of the university. I haven't sensed that this team has given up. I feel like this team is competing and trying hard. And I think that this team is handicapped by poor roster construction, which is not their fault. And I don't know that the coaching is to the standard that it needs to be for us to win at this level. And so I actually think it's more on this coaching staff than it is on these players. I mean, it's not their fault that we're playing 4 guards and half the team is out of position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of our friends of the show, Mr. Jay Williams, is getting a lot of attention for some comments he made at the end of the Pitt game. Now, we're down 4 with 29 seconds left, and the team is at the free throw line. Pitt is huddling. North Carolina, nobody's talking to each other. Nobody's huddling. Nobody's discussing what's going next. Jay points that out and says that it looks like there's zero leadership on the floor. I would agree with that, and was wondering how you felt about that comment. It's been picked up by multiple outlets. It's being run with. Do you feel like we have leadership? I just don't feel like there's a leader on the floor. Now, maybe Hubert's a great leader off the floor. It's hard to comment on things that we're not privy to. We're not, in practice. We're not in tape sessions and film sessions. And maybe they are coaching them up and the guys are just not running the stuff or executing the stuff. That could definitely be the point. But on the floor, to see those guys, like, they just go to the line. Like when I was playing, and I was not the best basketball player, I'll be the first person to tell you. But I would be getting the guys together. All right, look, if he misses one of these, we're going to run this. If we don't get a good look at a 3, immediately get to the rim and try to, draw contact. They just got on the line and was like, whatever. It looked like they gave up. And obviously that was addressed on the broadcast, and then everybody ran with it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the best teams have good leadership from players, but I think it is part of the coaching staff's job to create that culture and expectation.
Agreed. Talk completely.
And some people, and this, like, I'm sure you had teammates like this, they are natural leaders. It comes very easily to them, and they're going to be assertive, and they're going to demand that their teammates do things the right way and hold each other accountable. But not everybody is that way as an 18, 19, 21-year-old. And so I think the coaches who are adults and part of what they, experienced in their time as Carolina basketball players is that culture and what it means to be a junior or a senior or a super senior in the case of RJ, and the expectations of what you must do to be that leader. And so to me, if we don't have that, again, that comes back to the coaching staff more so than the players. I think Harrison Ingram seemed to be an incredible natural leader on that team last year on a number of different dimensions.
Cormac was a good leader.
Cormac was a good leader. I'm sure Baycott was as well. So I do think we lost a lot. But at the same time, we're not really that inexperienced of a team. We've got RJ, who should be able to be a leader. I mean, even someone like Cadeau, who's only a sophomore, and Trimble's been in the program for a while. There's no reason why those guys can't be vocal leaders. And help.
Who would you say is the leader of the team, though? Like, could you put your finger on it? Because you obviously could put your finger on Cormac or Harrison. You know what I mean? So that was one of my things, is I wouldn't be able to tell you who the leader of the team was. I would assume it was RJ, but it is definitely not. Like, I never see RJ talk.
Yeah, I think it needs to be RJ. Whether it is or not, I don't know, and I don't know if that's within his makeup or not.
Right. Definitely, I don't think it comes naturally to him, for sure.
Yeah. And so, I don't know who that person is, but it definitely seems to be lacking, especially compared to last year.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a real problem. And leadership is something that where the team is now, if they were to turn it around and make a run, because they do have 3 games now where they could pick up quad one wins. And if they were going to turn the season around, it would happen starting Saturday at Cameron Indoor Stadium. You can say whatever you want to say about the teams. You know, Duke has had down years and picked up big wins against us. We've done the same to them. You can throw the records out the window when it comes to that rivalry. You never know what's going to happen. But I think leadership is something that you really need when you're trying to turn the tide. Now, when things are going smoothly and guys are just hooping, you know, you might not need that leadership, but we need RJ to put his arm around people and say, hey, look, it's going to be tough, but we can pull this off. We can do this. I mean, it was 2 years ago where our season turned around in Cameron Indoor Stadium and we made that run to the NCAA tournament. That probably got us off the bubble when we won on Coach K's last game. So,
oh yeah, for sure it did. Yeah. Well, hopefully history repeats itself. It's hard to be optimistic given how they're playing and how we're playing. And I know, you know, throw the records out and all that stuff, but it's hard to ignore the trends of both teams and just the talent differential. And I'm not saying we're not a talented team, but when you throw in just like their overall size and length.
Yeah, biggest team in the country.
Yeah, and we just don't have that. You know, I mean, every position we're small.
Yeah.
And I just, you know, and okay, there's been teams that have won that way, but those teams don't turn the ball over. They can shoot incredibly well, and you know at least they can play into some of their strengths by being small. But I mean, we can't even really say, all right, we're just going to spread the floor against their bigger players, shoot a bunch of threes, you know, and try to like impose our will just by that sort of matchup. You know, because we just don't have, we're just not that good of a 3-point shooting team. We don't take, we don't handle the ball all that well. You know, we get out and run pretty well with some of these guys, but that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's really nowhere else on this team where you would point to like a reliable strength. We don't defend the three well. We don't defend the rim well.
Not
so
good.
You just can't play a 4-guard lineup when 2 of the guards can't shoot.
Yeah, I mean that's really, really tough. And I don't know what's going on with Seth Trimble, but he just hasn't been the same in the last month.
No, and I appreciate the rebounding. I mean, the 12 boards leading the team in rebounding is great. He does a lot. Mm-hmm. He definitely feels after the injury, he had a couple rough games. It feels like he's starting to reassert himself, but not really from the 3-point line. You know, the beginning of the year, beginning of the year, I was so optimistic. I felt like both he and Cadeau had done a ton of work over the summer. The shot looked good. The shot was going in early. And you could really sort of envision, if those 2 guys make shots, the freshmen come along and RJ is RJ, like, oh man, like we are going to be dynamic from the perimeter. Yeah. And just as the season has worn along, it just seems like both Seth and Elliott have lost all confidence in their shot. And I don't know why. But it just isn't gelling.
Yeah, it's a problem when you're a guard-oriented team and you can't shoot from distance, you know.
I mean, we were 1 for 11 in the second half. We got to the free throw line 9 times the entire game. You know, we turned the ball over 14 times. They had 22 points off the turnovers.
Yeah.
And, I mean, not to be like a math nerd about this, but like statistically, some things matter in basketball, and you have to be able to get easy points. And, we've always gotten to the free throw line and gotten cheap points there. We've always had great offensive rebounding teams and gotten cheap points there. We've always had good running teams and gotten cheap points there. I think we've generally taken care of the ball. And I think, Dean and Roy, there's a lot of like coaching philosophy that's just based on good statistics of, what's your expected points per possession. Your highest expected points per possession is getting to the free throw line, and then it's getting close to the basket, and then it's, offensive rebounding. And you sort of stack points on top of points by doing statistically reliable, repeatable things. And we've won a lot of games over the years with that philosophy. Right now, this team, we don't have those sorts of easy points. We're not beating teams from the free throw line. We're not beating teams with offensive rebounding. We're not really winning the turnover battle. We're not, and then the 3-point game has sort of become that statistical thing where if you can shoot 35, 40%, that's like shooting 60% from two. And, we don't do that well either. And we're giving up a ton of threes. And so just the weight of the statistical imbalance is why, we're losing all of these games. But that's also married to the roster construction, right? The reason we played two bigs all those years was because if you pound the ball inside, you're going to get the other team in foul trouble. You're going to shoot a lot of free throws. You can get a lot of offensive rebounds and putbacks. And that model worked. And I'm not saying that we necessarily have to go back to a too big philosophy, but if you're going to do a 1 in 4 out, there's certain players that you need in your roster construction to make that model work. Yeah. And we just don't have that. We don't have that one guy that you can just throw the ball in and surround them like we did with Baycott. And then, they have to double and then you get easy looks like, NC State rode that model last year, to the Final Four. So you need that post presence. And you need.
But we're not fixing that. We're not fixing that this year. I mean,
no. We don't have that person. And then you need that 4. And we've had that 4 has been when this Hubert system has worked, right? When Manick was firing on all cylinders, and then last year, with Harrison, and they did it slightly different ways. But that 4 who's flexible and can stretch the floor and at least be an offensive. Risk for the other team where they've got to go out on that person.
Yeah. Which side note, I didn't know this, but Dawson Garcia, obviously he transferred, left Carolina, and I think that changed the entire season because Manick caught fire and didn't have to split his minutes. He's still in college. I watched him play the other night. He plays for Minnesota. He's still playing.
Yeah, I think he's actually having a pretty good year.
Yeah, but I mean, not to knock him, but when we were able to give Manick all of those minutes, and it was like, hey, don't look over your shoulder, just start firing, is when our season turned around. But Manick, Harrison, both of those positions where they were utility guys and they were allowed to defend the 4, but also stretch the 4. We did really well. It's just we don't have that. I mean, and it's brutal. I hate to give up. I don't want to give up on the season, but I also don't like where the program's at, where we're talking about next year in the off season before February 1st. You know what I mean? Like it's just hard for me. Like I want to enjoy college basketball, and I'm not saying we got to compete for a national championship every year, but living on the bubble and living off we're not even on the bubble anymore right now, I don't think.
Yeah. I don't like the results, but I also don't enjoy watching this team.
Oh, no, yeah, I didn't even – I told this someone the other day. It's like, man, maybe it's because, I live out in L.A. and been dealing with the fires and there's just all this other stuff. Carolina used to be – even if we lost, man, I loved game days. I'd get up and we got the game on tonight. Now I almost dread it because I know I'm going to not enjoy it. Even the games that we win, Boston College was brutal to watch. It's just like I feel like I've turned into a terrible fan. Like I'm just the worst.
And last year the results were good, but the chemistry was great. The positivity was great. I mean, they were just a very easy team to root for. And this year's team, maybe it's the lack of leadership, but also just like the lack of execution and attention to detail. And we've talked about this before. Like, I just get sick of us like setting these ghost screens. I'm like, go hit somebody and set a pick.
Yeah.
I get tired of us never.
We are the worst screening team. You said this at the beginning of the year, and I cannot not see it anymore. I watch these games and I'm like, oh, Zach would go crazy on that. We are the worst screening team in America.
We're lucky they don't call more moving screens on us. I just think they get tired of calling offensive fouls on us. They feel like we hit our quota at like 4 moving screens and they just stop. We stick it out our hip half the time.
I've never seen us sit I've never seen a team set more screens and create zero advantage from the screen.
Zero
The screen,
advantage.
zero advantage.
Yeah.
None.
Yeah. So it's. I mean, I guess we're venting now, but so yeah. I think the question's going to be, with Hubert, how much commitment does he have to making the right changes?
Mm-hmm.
And
do you think he's coaching for his job? Do you think he's coaching for his job the rest of the way?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think what the Bubba did with Mac would indicate to me that he's not afraid to make a hard call, if he feels like the program's not going in a good direction. I have to imagine that Bubba's having conversations with him about what are we going to do differently, because clearly, the program's not trending where it needs to be. And again, I don't know if that's going to be on the GM player personnel side. Maybe that's something that they contemplated last year and Hubert was resistant. I have no idea kind of what's happening in those conversations. Maybe Hubert's fully on board with that.
Would you imagine Hubert pushes back and is like, this is not my fault? Like, we tried to get these kids in the portal. We didn't have enough money. Or do you think Hubert accepts part ownership of, because there's a lot of teams that win with less talent than we have. So now, people make all the excuses in the world about roster construction, and they are very viable. But we shouldn't drop all of these games. All of these games should not be lost.
No, and I would say with the portal, I think roster construction is less of an excuse. I mean, it used to be, okay, you recruited these guys. Maybe you thought you're going to land these two superstars and you finish second and didn't get them. And then you can have a hole at a specific position and it can be hard to fill it.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone knew what the holes in this roster were.
Yeah.
And we did not fill them.
No.
And where we thought we filled them with some pieces that are not ACC caliber players.
Right.
And so, ultimately, Hubert, I assume he acknowledges this, but that's on him and that's on their evaluation of the landscape. And there's a bunch of guys, providing quality minutes at the power forward level who I'm sure would have loved to play at Carolina, who, we just didn't recruit or, for whatever reason, didn't end up here.
Yeah.
I mean, you brought the Wolf kid from Yale who went to Michigan, and I don't know what happened there. Maybe
he's awesome.
He's
awesome.
We could use him. How hard did we go after him? Did we slow play him because we preferred some other guys, and so we lost them? It's just very, very hard from our seats to understand, why it played out like it did. But to a certain degree, that doesn't matter the why. I mean,
no, yeah.
That's what they're paid to do.
Yeah. All right. 1 to 10, your confidence that we'll be able to turn this ship around enough to sneak into the tournament, which I hate. We're talking about North Carolina basketball and we're talking about sneaking into the tournament. How confident, how unconfident are you that we're going to be able to turn this thing around? Because I'm at a 2 out of 10 right now that we make the tournament.
I was going to say 2 out of 10.
Yeah.
I was going to say 1, but then that feels overly negative. But yeah, it's low. It's very low. I mean, we're running out of opportunities, and 2 of those opportunities are Duke. And hey, anything can happen. It's just very hard for me to see us winning those games this year.
Yeah, I mean, the only hope I've watched a bunch of Duke games, and I feel like they did a wonderful job in the portal. They went out and got some senior leadership and some guys that have experience in places where usually Duke is freshman heavy. And they're still freshman heavy with Cooper Flagg, who's probably going to be the National Player of the Year. But they've got experience in other spaces. But there's been some stretches. I mean, they were like 1 of 20 from the field against Wake Forest, and they found a way to win, which says a lot about that team defensively. Then NC State gave them all they could handle just a few days ago in Cameron, where they were up double digits in the second half at one point in time, and they've gone on cold streak. So like there's more shocking things have happened within the rivalry, but yeah, it doesn't look good for us this season, and it should not make me as sick as it does. But like to quit on the season already, it's not even February, and we waited after you and I were sick. We went to the Alabama game. Like we were heavily invested. We did this show, and we put a lot of time, and I care about it. I know you care about it, and we waited all off season with that pit in our stomach of not really living up to the team's potential in March. And this is what we waited for, and it's just like it's really hard for me to process.
Yeah. What's hard for me to process is I was watching the Pitt game is just how physically overmatched we looked. We're North Carolina. And like if you put a GM hat on, if you're a GM in the NBA or if you're a GM at the college level,
yeah,
part of your job is to figure out the athletic profile and body type and sort of physical qualities that you need in your roster to run your style, and then try to match that with a skill level, or have a coaching staff that can develop those athletes into the skill level needed to win.
Yeah,
we have neither. We are not particularly skilled.
Yeah.
Our guards, if you were to go one-on-one, our guards really, like, if you just look at their handles and like their ability, like sort of basic, like one-on-one facing up and beating people. I mean, occasionally Elliott can get to the rim, crossover and stuff. But really, they have a hard time creating a lot of advantage. Ian has some wiggle. He can create some advantage. Shooting, our shooting, we're not particularly skilled. But maybe more importantly, we are just small.
Yeah.
I mean, basketball has gotten to the point where teams have big guards, long guards. And, I look at something like Oklahoma City, who plays a lot of small ball, but they are setting these historic records of turning people over because the GM has a vision for, we need to play the style we're going to play. We need big 6'5", 6'6" wings and guards with, big and athletic. And then we need some mobile bigs who can, or switchable, and get out and move their feet and defend the perimeter. What is our philosophy? Like if let's pretend we had a GM, like if you looked at our team, we don't have like a philosophy of this is the type of athlete that you need in order to impose your will and win basketball games like Carolina should.
Yeah.
And like, I think if you went position by position and you're like, okay, like point guard, what is the profile? Two guard, what is the profile? Wing, what is the profile? Four, what is the profile? Now let's go find those guys either in the portal or go recruit them. And it doesn't feel like we're doing that.
Yeah, one of the things
we got
that
guys who don't fit. They don't fit each other. They don't fit the position they're playing. We're basically too small, at every position. And I'm like, we are North Carolina, man. We need some athletes.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I am a little worried, well, I'm a whole lot worried and concerned is both of those guards are only 6'2", 6'3" that are coming in next year. Now, 6'3" is not small, but like, have we not learned our lesson? I mean, guys get into the lane and just lift up over. And Elliott supposedly is going to still be here. I don't know if we lose him to the portal. I don't know how unhappy the guys are, if they love it there, if they want to go somewhere and win. I mean, it's who knows? It's the wild, wild west as soon as the season ends. And I don't envy college basketball coaches having to re-recruit their own rosters every year, but that's just where we're at. But those guys don't have a ton of size on them. And Caleb Wilson, if he comes, knock on wood, Gigi Jackson once signed with us before, and guess what? He never played a day for Carolina. So until I see him on night one or they're in practice, I don't really, I don't count my chickens before they're hatched. I'm really worried. I'm really worried that we're just going to repeat this and until we move off of Hubert, because it's been 4 years of really roller coaster. Are we going to learn our lesson? But we'll see. I mean, maybe those kids are going to hit growth spurts and they both come in at 6'5". I have no idea.
Yeah, and I think they're bigger. I mean, they may not be what we want in terms of size, but I think they both, are bigger than Elliott and RJ. So,
Yeah.
And
Well, yeah,
I don't know.
almost everybody is.
Yeah, I don't know their wingspans and all that other stuff too. I mean, all that stuff
Yeah.
is like if you look at the NBA guys, you know, they're all what +6 to like +8 in terms of wingspan over height.
Yeah.
And so that's like there, you know, there's other like physical attributes I think that you've got to be recruiting for. You know, and Drake is sort of a prototypical 3. The problem is he's playing 4.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and Ian's probably like decent size for a 2, but he's playing 3. And so, you know, everybody's like shifted up, you know, a spot. And so it makes them, you know, small for their position. And I don't know, I think we've got to get more positional size, you know, as we build the roster. And you can cover up one small guard maybe, but you know, trying to cover up 2 or 3 small guards at a time. You just can't do it. You have too many matchup problems. The coaches are too good. You know, it's just too easy to get those guys, you know, good looks, and for them to match up on. And you know, we have no bigs who can guard at all. And so if you play Stanford and they've got a good big who was in the transfer portal, by the way, so I have no idea if we went after him or not, but sure looks like we could have used him.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like it's so easy to coach against us because the matchups to exploit are all over the floor. I mean, even that big from the Boston College that tore us up so bad, kind of that wide load guy.
Yeah, big guy.
I mean, I don't know if he's
Zenner
good or
if
he isn't good or what, how many points a game he averages, but he looked like a world beater against us. I mean, he was catching the ball at the 3-point line and dribbling 8 times and reverse pivoting and getting to the rim. I'm like, where is the defense? Like, this is pitiful.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad.
It's bad. So the good thing is in college basketball, it can get fixed in 1 year now. So
yeah,
you know, that's where my optimism is these things are obvious to me. I think they're obvious to any Carolina fan watching.
Yeah.
So that means it's obvious to Bubba Cunningham and it's obvious to Hubert. The question is what's the willingness to make the necessary changes to fix it? And you know,
but I go back to this isn't the first year though. Like these problems were obvious 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's my only thing of like, well, how many years do we have to live like this before it's like now it's finally being talked about across. I've never seen people saying, you know, I saw something today where the Vegas had Hubert Davis as the 10th highest percentage to be fired in the offseason, you know, in the country. And so now, you know, people are saying he's on the hot seat. So I've never seen that before. But this isn't the first year where it's like, all right, we got some issues. You know what I mean? Like there was talent on that national championship team, obviously, because they put it together and they made a run. That was a brutal year. Like we did not play well until we went to Cameron and something clicked for us. Now there was a lot of off the court stuff, and maybe there's some off the court stuff happening this year. I have no idea, but that goes back to player evaluation and needing a CEO and needing someone to like take stuff off of Hubert's plate so we can pay more attention to. All right, we got to build team chemistry because there's a boatload of talent in the backcourt, and they ain't playing like it. Like for all the talk about having the most elite backcourt in America, wrong. By all metrics, it is a very mediocre bottom half of the conference backcourt.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Hopefully, starting over is going to be tough, but I'm to the place where I don't want to watch this product anymore, and it's challenging.
Well, let's say we do move on from Hubert. Who would you want?
Jay Wright. I'd want us to get rid of the family rule.
Well, we absolutely have to get rid of the family rule because there's really there's no option, right? I mean, we would have loved for Stackhouse to have done really well at Vanderbilt. We would have loved for Miller to do well at Cincy. Those two things didn't happen or haven't happened yet for Miller at Cincy. But so you got to go outside the family. Yeah, I mean, if you get Jay Wright to come back, that's like a no-brainer.
Shaka Smart is also a name that I would love to bring him, get him on campus, see if there's synergy for his vision. I don't know a ton about Shaka Smart, but I think his guys play hard. I've seen him win games where I felt like his roster was not superior. One of the things that I struggle with when people talk about Hubert is Hubert won with a superior roster. Like, I just don't see Hubert winning games through scheme and like scouting, player development. And now it doesn't completely fall on him. It's the staff, but Hubert chooses his staff. You know what I mean? Like, it was, I heard the other day where it came down to King Rice and Jeff Lebo, and Lebo has a relationship with Hubert Davis. He went with Lebo. Maybe King Rice gives us a different element, you know. So Hubert carries the responsibility of choosing his staff. I would love to see us win some games where we don't necessarily always have the best players, because you're not always going to have the best players.
Yeah, I would throw Chris Beard out there. I don't know exactly what happened at Texas, but I think he was. I don't know all the details, but I think he was unfairly fired. Like, I think he's accused of something that like didn't happen or was overblown or something. I don't know. That's sort of worth investigating. But that guy can coach, and he's obviously doing a very good job at Ole Miss.
Yeah, I mean, Bruce Pearl's also a guy who I think has been able to take lesser talent and far exceed expectations. There's coaches out there; they just don't exist within the Carolina family. So I'm hoping that we reevaluate the rule of we have to stick in the family. You know?
Yeah, I think we have to. I mean, again, I don't even think there's anybody who's close to being.
No, we just stick with Hubert. I mean,
Yeah.
if I think we downgrade, and I'm not the biggest Hubert guy at the moment as far as coaching. Now, everyone that I know that knows Hubert says he's the greatest human being to ever live.
Yeah.
So I hesitate to say anything negative about what a wonderful and amazing person is. And I wouldn't mind if he was the CEO of the team and he wanted to be kind of the guy that oversaw things. But like, when it comes to someone on the sidelines and scheming and running certain sets and offenses and holding kids accountable that aren't playing defense and player evaluation and roster construction, I just think it has not been there. And I just want to have a little bit of hope that it changes. In the last 4 years, if I'm looking back on it, and it's 75% of the time we're living on the bubble, and 50% of the time, for what it looks like at this moment in time, we don't even make the tournament. Like, this used to be Carolina. So now we're not even a top 70 program. Like, that's tough.
Yeah. 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 I think, again, if you're Bubba, at a minimum, you have to insist on the GM and create that structure on the player personnel side and sort of move that out of the role. And of course, that person has to be in sync with Hubert on the type of player he needs at each position. But that has to be the minimum amount of change. Whether there's more change or not, I don't know. I'd be tempted to give it another year and put that in place if I'm Bubba, and try to get the roster right and see what happens, because we have had some years under Hubert where we've obviously played incredibly well. And so, I might at least give it another roll, just because I do think he is such a
If he
great
comes
guy.
back, though, something has to change, though. If he comes back, like, there has the GM or something, there has to be some sort of change. Like, it'll be very hard for me if it's just, all right, we're going to give it one more year the way it's currently.
And I'm very encouraged by what's happening on the football side and the aggressiveness that the athletic department, the administration, is showing, the level of investment and the vision to change with the times. And I think that model is so obviously needed in the current landscape that we absolutely are going to do that. Be curious to see who they try to get for that role. I mean, on the football side, Michael Lombardi's a legit what?
Yeah, go get Mitch Kupchak.
I was about to say, we have some guys on that side in the family.
Yeah.
And I know Jerry didn't totally work out at Vandy on the coaching side, but he's like a pretty legit NBA guy and player personnel development guy through the Toronto organization. I think he's very respected in the NBA. I could see him being very good in that GM role.
What about George Karl? Go get George Karl. Get him, put him in the executive space.
Yeah, yeah. So I think we I'd love to see us do that. If we brought in Mitch Kupchak to be the GM, that would be awesome. That would be really cool. And I think maybe that would be what we would need for Hubert to just complement what he's good at.
Yeah, I honestly, I'm all for Hubert being the guy. For me as a fan, just as someone who's way too invested in a team I didn't play for or a school I didn't go to, but my better half here did. I don't want to start over. I want more than anything for Hubert to be successful and us to win the national championship every year. It has nothing to do. It's just the way things are going. I don't have much hope. And like as a fan, you want to turn the game on and feel like you have a chance in every game. I don't feel that way anymore. I go into the games and it's terrible because I'm not playing. Fearful. Oh man, just let these guys like figure it out tonight. Something. Just play well. And I hate living that way as a fan. And to my own detriment, we have been spoiled. Most of my life, we have never had to deal with that. But like you said to start this show, it's been a brutal run for Carolina basketball, and I'm just hopeful that there's some change. But go Heels, baby!
Go
Saturday,
Heels!
Go Heels! All right, the last thing we'll end on, and even if it's a loss, I know that you're going to be optimistic. Give me a score. Give me one key to the game and give me a score for the Duke game in Cameron Indoor. College game day's there. It's the greatest rivalry in sports. I mean, hopefully we can hold up our end of the bargain. We did sweep them last year, which was beautiful.
I think we lose by 20.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to go 85-65.
Oof. All right, I'm gonna. What's your key to that game? What's your key to that loss?
I don't know how we're going to guard them.
Yeah,
I mean we haven't been able to guard players that are half the caliber of Cooper Flagg.
Yeah, he is unbelievable. I mean, he is got to be one of the. I mean, he reclassified, and he's going to be the National Player of the Year if Johnny Broome doesn't win it.
I mean, they've got big guards, and so they can back us in. I mean, they've got. I mean, if I'm Shire, I've got like 15 things on my list that I'm like, that'll work.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe
Tyler James, they've been playing point guard. He's like 215, 220.
That's what I mean by like we don't have anybody who's physically imposing.
Yeah.
We need some men out there.
Yeah, it's tough. You're right. Tough. That's going to be challenging. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's just going to be very challenging. I mean, we got to shoot the ball well, I guess. I mean, like we don't have a whole lot to hang our hat on in this matchup. I think it'd be very tough for us to rebound with them. I mean, given their size, it's going to be very tough for us to, I think, get to the rim given their shot blockers and their length.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I mean, we already have that problem. I feel like we just serve up blocks left and right.
The rim. Yeah. We're not getting to the rim unless it's on the break and the big's not down there.
Exactly. So like, I mean, unless that guy's going to have 18 blocks if we like keep feeding them like we have been. So what do we go to? I mean, we're going to have to spread the floor and make a bunch of threes, I guess. But I mean, statistically, we haven't done that all year.
Yeah, I agree with you. It could get out of hand, but it's Carolina Duke. I'm going to say that we lose in a tighter one than we think, and we drop it by end up being, I'll say 75-69.
I take that.
Yeah, we show some heart, we fight, and unfortunately down the stretch we can't close it out. I'll go with what has happened most of the year. Or I'll say we're going to pull up the upset of the year. We're going to win 75-69.
I like it.
Yeah, we're winning. That was all a joke. We're going to win by 6. Mark it down. And we're going to shoot 37.5/38.5% from 3. And we're going to shock the world. Season's turning around. We're going to end up being a 9 or a 10 seed. Sweet 16. Here we come.
I like it.
Go Heels, baby.
Go Heels.